Boker Tov, Yom Tov, Zohrim Tovim, and Laila Tov, no matter where you are at. This is Carrie, and yes, I'm going to speak from my heart again, but we are going to be doing something like I did in the last teaching. We are going to be specifically working with the word judgment today. I actually had a subscriber ask me to do this to help clear up some confusion on what the word judgment means. And I thought that I would go ahead and start that. Um, I'll close this down. I was actually looking at this verse earlier about man's, that Yod He Vave will not strive. You will probably be hearing something about that in days ahead. But for now, let's look at the word judgment. We actually have two words that I want to share with you. And the first one we're going to look at is the word mishpat. The first thing I want you to notice that in this spelling through the letters of Hebrew, we have a pei that does not have a dagesh in the center of it. What I find very revealing is that every single time, if you want to take a look over here onto the right-hand side of the screen, every time you look at it being translated, the dagesh is in it. What this does is it takes the pei from a sound like the English F, fe, to make it a hard P, like in the name Paul. But every time that it is written, it has a dagesh in it. And one of the ways that I can see that is through the, as I scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see in the lower right-hand or left-hand corner, it will show every single movement that this word has. And through the movements on the things that have been written, they all have a dagesh in it. The reason why this is important is one of the meanings of a dagesh, when you look at it, means piercing, or one who has been pierced. So keep that in mind as we break down this word. I am going to take us to another site because it just makes it a little bit more easy to read. And this is Study Light. And we're going to take a look at it simply because I like how they break down the definitions of it using the Brown Driver's Berg definition. It's much easier to see. It's more clean. So mishpat, which we have seen translated as judgment, you can see it's judgment, justice, ordinance, and then we break down judgment. And look at what this is speaking of. This is act of deciding a case, the place, court, seat of judgment, the process, procedure, litigation before judges, the case and cause presented for judgment, sentence, decision of judgment, execution of judgment, and time of judgment. So as we look at this word, it's really more about a situation where it's like a court of law that is judging your actions. I mean, that's the only reason why you're taken into court is because you've either done something or you haven't done something and you've broken the law. So that's what this word is dealing with, but there's something else that we should take a look at here. That isn't the root of the word. The actual root, as we go back to Bible Hub, scrolling back down to the bottom, I'm sorry if I'm making you seasick by scrolling too fast. Actually, I just saw this, the proper fitting, measure, and fitness. That's interesting. But as we come down here, it says that it's from the word shafat. And shafat has to do with judging and governing. So there's a principle here about governing, and we need to drill down on this a little bit more so that you can see what the letters are actually speaking to us. And we're talking about just the simple phrase of judging, pronouncing sentences, to vindicate or punish, to govern, passively to litigate, literally or figuratively. When we actually take look at the letters themselves, it's actually very telling because we see that we have the sheen, which means to consume. Consuming, it's a picture of the front teeth of what you take a bite into. And as the constituent letters are spelled Shin Yod Nun, this is actually telling us that we are to be consuming the vision that is placed within us so we can overcome our fallen flesh. How do we do that? We do that through the words that bring revelation. And the words that are bringing revelation, the tet means to wrestle. It's actually a snake in a basket, and it also means mud and mire. So as we, as it has been written that Adam was from the clay of the earth, that we are one with the earth, while we are here, we wrestle in this place of this basket with the snake in the mud and the mire. So roughly what I really want to say about Shaphat from the root essence. So again, this is a word that is full of potential that needs to be activated upon. The activation comes when we add letters and we delete letters, either adding to the suffix and the prefix or actually within the root of the word. So this has plenty of potential to it, like a lump of clay on a potter's wheel. But we know that it is a process of consuming a lesser nature through words that bring revelation that we will be wrestling with. And when you look at the tet, it's interesting because at one side is a vav that connects, and then the other side is like the head of the snake. So as you're wrestling, you get to decide which path you're going to take. Are you going to be pierced, where you're grabbing a hold of that which will connect? Or are you going to continue wrestling the snake, which is the reptilian beast part of us in the basket of the world that just keeps us going round and round and round and round? When we take a look at the root of the, or not the root, but the manifestation of the word that we see translated mostly, mishpat, now we have activation. And we have the mem that is added on the prefix, which is specifically dealing with mother's teaching. Now remember, if you've listened to some of my teachings before, mem in the constituent letters that make up the symbol of the single entity mem is a mem and a mem sophit. This is a representation of mother and father as a representation of water. That is the paleo form of the mem, is water. It's the waters of the chaos or waters of order. In order for us to see what this word is meaning, judging, it is mother and father that come and present themselves as a standard of measurement in which we are judged by. It's these living water teachings that are the purification fires that come through the mouth that speaks revelation to us in things that we are going to wrestle. It is important too that I explain to you that the process of wrestling, especially with the mishpat, in the world as we are wrestling, mother's whole process is to deal with our external orientation. That's why this word, when we looked at it through study light, it sounds like it's a court case. We're being judged by our external actions because her whole job is to get us rightly oriented so that we are walking in the golden rule in treating others the way that we wanted to be treated, which is a level of standard of honoring people, respecting them, um, kindness. A lot of the fruits of the Spirit are included in this. So that is her job. And if you aren't doing things in a positive manner, you will be taken to court because your external actions are what are being judged. You know, the case, the cause, the sentence, decision, the place, the court, all of that, it's external. So we can see that water and fire, the purification proceedings, are dealing with external manifestation in this word for judging. Now I want to show you the next word for judgment. It's the word din. This form that I am showing you is from it's an Aramaic word, and of course in the Old Testament we only have two books that are written in Aramaic, and that's Ezra and Daniel. So this helps connect us with the Old Testament with the New Testament, the Tanakh and the Brit Chadashah. And as we go down, we can see that it's Aramaic. It's corresponding to the word dun, and dun, again, judgment. So judgment, the suit, justice, sentence, or tribunal. So it sounds very similar, you wouldn't know exactly what is being said unless you were to take it down into the letters themselves. And there's a reason why certain letters or words are written, because they do have different meanings. And in English, you would not see this. Um, so we're talking about a straight course in selling direct. Now, in Kabbalistic teachings, the path of the arrow is the most direct path, and it's the path of the mystic. It's called the way of the arrow. So, in terms of judging the straight course into cell direct, if we look at the tree of life in Kabbalistic teachings, the path of the arrow, which is the path of the mystic, it goes between the mother and the father, the right hand side being the side of severity and the left hand side of mercy. Now, again, I don't teach Kabbalah. I have never been taught Kabbalah. I just see the information in the letters and what they're speaking to me. And I had somebody else bring it up to me that it seemed like we were teaching things of Kabbalah. So it was very, very done organically. So Dean, judging, let's take a look at this. I'm going to bring up Study Light one more time, because they're actually saying it's an Aramaic word. But let's scroll down here and look at the paleo. We have the dalet, which is a picture of a door. We have a noon, which is a picture of a seed representing life. And it's actually like even a germinated sprout that would support you as giving you a strong base. But in the simple definition, this word judge means the door of life. The Hebrew concept of judge is one who restores life, and the goal of one that rules or judges is to bring a pleasant and righteous life to the people. It also can mean a deliverer as one who restores life to his people. So let's look at this individually. We have a dalet, which is the door. The door is to the inward man, the place of the heart. It's from a word, dal, and dal and dalet, which when you look at it, it's one who is poor and feeble. And this poor person needs to go through the door, because when we're talking about poor, we are speaking of a spiritual language here, which is dealing with spirituality. You can have people that don't have a lot of money, but they are rich spiritually, and that's what we're speaking of here. So we're going into the door of the inward man in order to be taught and instruct our hearts so that we can be marked with a different frequency, the tav, which then is the mark of an exemption from judgment. And what do we do when we enter that door? Well, there's the seed vision that is then planted within the yod, which is the power, means, and direction through that which would bring us life, which is the actual noon, the activity of life. So this word is dealing with the internal word. That's why we have two forms of judgment. We have mother's side, which is a severity, which is dealing specifically with the beast ego, to tame it and to yoke it so that we can rightly relate to people and then rightly relate to God, that there is a higher source that is above us. And so it's the mishpat is the external work, and then deen is the internal work in which we judge ourselves by. And again, if you didn't know that there was two types of judgment, then you would have no idea when you were reading them in the English what it's talking about. So again, I know this sometimes can be more complicated as I'm trying to show you in real time as I'm looking at some of my sources, but understand that judgment, we have two things that are going on. So mother and father are going to assist us in that, and it all has to do with our beast ego nature. I know you've heard me speak of that many times, but as the beast ego is the one that tells us that we're separate from one another. It is the one that is motivated and controlled through fear, and controls and motivates us through fear to do certain things because it only exists within the flesh. and it wants to protect the flesh at all costs, because once we release this flesh suit, it no longer can exist. It is part of our fall. It is part of our fall in consciousness that this was allowed to come in as the reptilian side of us. And if you go into science, you will hear them talk about the reptilian part of our brain. Well, it specifically is about this aspect, our lower flesh and our lower consciousness levels. And it is all motivated about fear and fear. And again, fear of judgment. But again, that is simply because judgment is a means and a way for us to eradicate the beast nature. And the whole purpose of dealing with the beast nature is so that we are treating people civilly, honorably, and protecting them as we are protected, so that our outward flesh doings doesn't cause harm. And then we move into the inward dealings. Once we have been tamed and yoked through Mother's teaching, then we can actually move into the portion of Father's teaching, which is, again, the door to the inner man, where the vision that gives us the power, means, and direction will allow us to overcome our fallen flesh nature. Because, again, that has to do with the beast. I hope that brought some clarification. It's always interesting to see the first time these words are used. I just don't want to make these teachings too long, because I am aware that people usually watch about half of my teachings, and the last one I posted was 45 minutes long. So I'm not going to take us down any more paths today, but understand that the judgment aspect is about eradication of the beast nature, and that the judging that is being done is stuff that we measure ourselves by. One who has perfected love, which Source is, Father Source, cannot judge because he is in unconditional love. He loves continually regardless of what we do. So the judging is really up to us, and it's the measure and standard that we measure ourselves by. That's why we're not to judge one another, because in actuality, we project that which is in us on other people, which is a mirror of ourselves, so we can see the things that we need to work on and judge ourselves by. So if you are looking at somebody and you're like, oh my goodness, they talk too much, well, then really you're projecting the fact that that's something that you really don't like, that's about you, and you're seeing it on somebody else, meaning that you do talk too much. Or if, and this is very common when it comes to narcissistic ways of thinking, if they are projecting, they have to project all of their shadow work on other people. So if they were saying, I really don't like that person, or that, I'm sorry, if that, I don't think that person likes me, well, in actuality, it's because they're really saying, I don't like that person. It's a different way of looking at shadow work, but until we can see that I am you and you are me, we are never going to be able to distinguish what is and what isn't, so that we can eradicate the thing that which keeps us separate, which is the beast ego nature. And that is why we need to judge first our external actions, which then will make us turn inwardly and do the finish work within to finally dislodge the beast and get into that place of unconditional love. Hope this was helpful. Please leave your comments below. I love to hear from you. And let me know if I was clear as mud, or if that made sense to you. And also if there's other words that you would like me to break down for you. I enjoy doing these, and I enjoy sharing with you. So until I share another video, I pray that you have lots of love and light flood your life. And I'm just really grateful that you're here. Shalom, shalom.